Hey guys, what's up? Today I want to show you what are my 10 favorite JRPGs developed by Gust. Who is Gust, you're asking? Well, those are the creators of the Atelier series. But I'm pretty sure some of you also know them for other JRPGs, and some of those JRPGs might be in today's video. Now, not only in Japan games, but thankfully, the majority of Gust JRPGs have been released in the West. So let's begin! Number 10. Atelier Ryza. First, I want to say that the order of this list was pretty hard to do. Gust has so many good JRPGs that I had to leave some great ones behind. I decided to include Ryza because it slightly surpassed my expectations I had when I first played it some years ago. However, as of the making of this video, I haven't played the sequel yet. I honestly thought I was gonna hate this hybrid combat, mixing turn-based with real-time, one of those similar to the old Final Fantasy games where the enemy just wasn't gonna wait for you to decide your next action. Battles were so intense here, especially against the bosses, that I ended up greatly enjoying it. I did find this game harder than the majority of the Atelier games, and I've played my fair share of them. A few spikes were there that upset me, but they were nothing I couldn't handle with some grinding and weapon synthesis. Speaking about that, I also felt the alchemy system in this game was less convoluted and complex than in previous games. I'm not saying it wasn't deep or anything, just easier to understand and get into. The visuals were beautiful, and the town itself, the biggest in the series so far, was somewhat overwhelming, but fun to navigate through. I like the characters and the story, even though it's really just your everyday Atelier plot, but that's okay. Overall, it's a very decent game and one of the best in the series. Number 9. Kemia, or Kemia. This game is also part of the Atelier series, but I've always felt it's more of a spin-off because in here, you're not a girl trying to be an alchemist and doing side quests around town. In Kemia, you control Vane, a high school student with amnesia and a really dark past. However, he enrolls in the academy where he and his friends will have a cauldron. The one you'll use to synthesize stuff that you buy, acquire, or gather in the school or the overworld. Quests will be almost always related to assignments from the teachers of the classes you'll take. However, there's no real simulation here like in the Persona games though, it's just a game that takes place in a high school. That's all. I can't stress out enough to try and synthesize the best weapons and accessories possible all the time, as they are stupidly connected to your skill tree system, something I did not like in this game. Story, characters, music, and combat are phenomenal here, but I can't rank it higher because of that leveling feature. It just makes the game way harder than it was originally intended to be. Other than that, it's still very worth playing, including its port to the PSP, especially because of the combat and its battle themes that will surely rock your socks off. Number 8. Tonelico, Melody of Elamia. This series comprises a trilogy and a couple of prequels as well. Out of that first trilogy, I guess I like the first game the most, but to be completely upfront with you, the other two are just as great. I guess I have more nostalgia for this one as it's one of the first RPGs I played by Gust. The lore and world here is futuristic, kinda post-apocalyptic actually, since people now live in sky towers. You play as Liner, a knight of Elamia who lives in Platina. A deadly virus is threatening Platina, and during an attempt to stop it, he falls all the way down to one of the towers I mentioned. Here, he'll try to make his way back while dealing with several problems in the Church of Elamia. He'll also meet two Ravatales, who are magical girls who can cast powerful song magic. The entire game pretty much revolves around them, and a third Ravatale revealed much later in the game. Besides playing in a traditional style JRPG, you're supposed to dive into the subconscious of these girls and play the visual novel parts to bond with them. The excuse the game gives for this lewdness is that the player needs to do this so the girls can increase the power of their song magic and gain abilities, because in battle, played in turns, you control 3 characters and one of the girls. You're supposed to fight and protect her while she completes her casting spell. It's a great combat in my opinion, suitable for a great game that, despite its perverted mechanics in disguise, it's one of the best JRPGs developed by Gust. Number 7. R No Surge. So this is the prequel to the entire Tonelico trilogy and a great place to start. It's only on PS3 and PS Vita though, its Switch remaster is still exclusive to Japan for now. It's also a follow-up to a visual novel called Shiel No Surge that also stayed in Japan. The main heroine from that game is also one of the main characters here, but everything is explained pretty well. You don't need to play Shiel No Surge to play this one. Now, the plot here is quite complex, but in a nutshell, people live in ginormous ships because Earth is no longer inhabitable, so they're traveling the galaxy to find a suitable planet to live in. But of course, governments and organizations have different perspectives and they're fighting each other. Your characters get caught up in that. You got your first couple of main characters that you'll control for a while, and later you'll be able to switch to the other 2 protagonists, one being the girl from Shield No Surge. For the longest time, the game will be full of cheesy comedy and sexy bits, but it'll get really deep, complex and interesting, so the story is really worth it. Its combat is very unique. It plays in phases, with your guy attacking in waves of turns against multiple enemies. All this while your girl builds up energy to create her powerful song magic. It's a very intuitive combat since you click buttons of your controller to execute your different types of attacks. The majority of the time it'll be a walk in the park, but later it will start getting really challenging. This is a great game and remember, a prequel to the Tonelico trilogy. Number 6. Knights of Azure 2. For a while I thought this will be just a dumb fanservice game, and it turned out to be much more than that. I mean, it still is kinda silly. You play as Arush, an agent of an organization that fights demons. She's sent to guard her friend Liliana in a journey towards the Moon Queen to be a sacrifice. Unfortunately, the Queen herself ambushes them and kills Arush. However, she's brought back to life, but now as some kind of vampire. Her goal will now be to find her friend Liliana and defeat the Moon Queen. This is an action RPG with a bit of a gothic style where Arush can fight with up to one other female ally. Together they can bond and unlock combos and special attacks to fight against small hordes of enemies. These enemies, the demons, can also be recruited into your party and fight by your side. They can be pretty useful for other things as well, like fusion or puzzle solving. The game has fast-paced combat, great controls and good camera. Not the best action RPG ever made, but still really fun to play. I'm surprised it turned out to be quite short. Even doing all the side quests, it won't be longer than 20 hours, but I'm okay with that. It's also on the PlayStation 4 and Steam, by the way. Number 5. Atelier Shelley. I had experience with some Atelier games of this style when I first played Shelley. After Rorona, Meruru and Aisha, I was expecting more of the same. Nevertheless, this one surprised me for being much better than them. You could now follow the story through the eyes of one of the 2 Shelley girls, although parties do end up merging at some point. It's also surprisingly short and can be beaten with one protagonist in about 15 hours or so. Unless you want to do every single side quest in this game, that is, which is okay since you won't have to worry about any time limits whatsoever. That's right, some of the previous Atelier games in this series had a time limit to complete most of your side quests. Shelley went back to the original formula seen in the Iris trilogy, and you can just take as much time as you want to complete most of the quests here. You still got your synthesis feature as an alchemist, and coming up with new items is easy to understand. There's also a task system involved instead of the mandatory quest system we saw in previous games. This one is connected to improving your character's skills and not just in synthesis, which is pretty cool. The plot also stands out a little bit over the other games. The town is running out of water and there's no way to stop it, but the Shelley girls can find a way through alchemy. As to the house and the whys this problem has surfaced, the writers did a great job keeping things really interesting and sometimes kinda tragic. And I really like the combat here. Classic Atelier turn-based with burst combos and a badass special attack system to gang up on your enemies. This is definitely one of the best Atelier games out there. It's also on the PS Vita and digitally on PS4, Steam and Switch. Number 4. Blue Reflection Second Light. This one is a direct sequel to a game that is recommended to play before. I haven't played it since it's rare and expensive nowadays. There's also an anime that follows it, and even events and characters from it carry over here. Now, Second Light has its own story and protagonists, about a group of girls who have been mysteriously transported to an abandoned world full of demons. They don't remember much about their life before that or why they are even here, so it'll be your job to survive in this small world, explore it, recover the girls' memories, and find a way out. Problem is, girls from the previous game and the anime join your party and there's no way to fully understand their background. I mean, without playing the game and watching the anime, I guess. But you know, I got by no problem and still ended up loving the game and understanding almost everything. So it might not be that big of a deal if you jump straight into this one. Despite its girly silliness, it goes dark and tragic sometimes, which spices things up quite interesting, including a really badass plot twist. There's also some Atelier features where you gather items and synthesize stuff, including entire small locations that you can place around the desert. It's cool. Combat in this game is very similar to the one in Ryza. It's turn-based but time flows freely. However, unlike in Ryza, when any of the girls' turn comes up, you can take your time to select what she'll do next. It plays around a lot with agility and speed manipulation of the turn order. That's where your strategy will come from. It's an amazing battle system for a surprisingly addictive game. Don't let its cheesiness fool you, this is an excellent one, also on Switch and Steam. Number 3. Knights of Azure. Only on PS4 and Steam, the first game is better than its sequel in almost every regard. The second has better combat and controls though, but this one doesn't stay behind at all. An action RPG where you control only Arnis, an agent from the Kemia organization who's actually a half demon. Because of that, she can have monsters fight by her side, and up to 3 of them will be your party members in battle, each with their own different race, skills and weaknesses. Arnis can also fight with different types of weapons and create combos or special attacks based on them. And finally, also depending on the weapon equipped, she can transform into a full-fledged demon for a period of time to do massive damage to her enemies. It's a great combat with solid controls and camera. Visuals and graphics are pretty decent for an early 2016 game. It also came out on the PS Vita but only in Japan. That version can stay there for all I care, as it's pretty bad to be honest. Anyway, like I said, Arnis is an agent sent to protect her girlfriend while living in a gothic-styled hotel, but when Arnis finds out her lover is supposed to be a sacrifice, she'll do everything in her power to change her destiny. Just like its sequel, it's overloaded with loot content and fan service. Check it out if you find it for a reasonable price, cause its PS4 release is kinda pricey nowadays. Number 2. Mana Kemia 2. Literally the only thing that made me rank this game higher than the first one is the fact that the synthesis system was far more friendly. It doesn't lock you out of other possibilities when creating weapons and accessories, and materials aren't that hard to find. Now, this is a direct sequel to it, even though it stars the next generation of students. Some of the ones in the previous games are now teachers here. But I don't feel like it's necessary to play it first, so it's okay to jump straight into this one. Unlike its predecessor, this one lets you choose between 2 protagonists, Ulrika and Rasilux, 2 very unique characters to say the least. Later in the game their parties will merge, but for the longest time, assignments and plot events will be totally different. They're also trying to become alchemists and will actually be rivals for a big part of the game. Combat feels like an improved version of the previous game. You still fight with only 3 characters on the screen, but you can switch to the others even doing an attack, which creates an automatic combo. Once again, the battle themes are metal level of badass and will pump you up in this great turn-based system. Awesome characters, awesome music, awesome pacing. It's a great JRPG for all types of gamers. Sadly, we never got its PSP port, so for now this is only available on the PS2. Hope it gets remastered one day with its prequel. Number 1. Atelier Iris 2. Honestly, Kemia 2 or even the first Knights of Azure could have easily been number 1. I only gave preference to this one out of nostalgia cause it was the very first Gust JRPG I ever played. While barely connected to Eternal Mana, which is the first in the Iris trilogy, its story and most of its characters don't have anything to do with the ones in that game. That means it doesn't matter which one you start with in this trilogy. Unlike the majority of the Atelier games, Iris 1 and 2 feel more like adventure-focused, regular turn-based RPGs, not quest-driven like the others. You will be switching between childhood friends Feld and Vise when they get separated. Feld will travel to the outside world to help save his own, while Vise will remain home to help him with alchemy. She's pretty much the Atelier part of the game, while Feld is a traditional style RPG part going from town to town with a map in between. This game has some cool dark stuff on it that I wasn't expecting to see, a really solid plot and cast of characters. I will admit them and the story are also the reason why I chose this game as my number 1. Battle system is like the Kemia games, but this one predates them. 3 characters up front and the others in the back, ready to be switched to at any given time. Some people were bugged by the fact that the camera zooms in during every attack, but I wasn't. I thought it was awesome. Overall, this is an amazing game that's also great for newcomers. Atelier fans will find it very different though, but in a really good sense. Still exclusive to the PS2 though, but I don't think it's that expensive yet.